Leicester, England to marry Jane and Joseph Merrick. When young Joseph was born he was a completely normal child, healthy, well-formed and without any medical anomalies. However, at the age of 5, Merrick's physical form began to change rapidly. He developed abnormal growths on his bones causing huge deformities on his skin. His cranial structure changed too and large swathes of skin hung from the back of his skull and in front of his face. His right arm twisted and his hand contorted into a fin-like appendage. His legs suffered the same fate as his arm, causing impairments when he walked and requiring him to use a stick. Although Merrick became increasingly handicapped with age, he successfully attended school until the age of 11 when his malformations prevented him from accessing his classes. Shocked by what they were witnessing, his parents were convinced that Merrick's conditions must be linked to trauma that his mother had experienced while pregnant. She had been kicked by an elephant during a trip to the fair. The Merricks thought it could be the only explanation for their son's illness. During Merrick's time, medicine was not up to the scientific standards of today. So seeing a person with a disorder like Merrick's was a shock. At that time, many doctors determined that Merrick suffered from a severe case of neurofibromatosis. This is a genetic disease that causes the development of tumors on a person's nervous system. Fortunately, medicine has advanced in many ways since then. Through the study of Merrick's remains, it was determined that neurofibromatosis was a wrong diagnosis. Merrick's disorders were not at the level of the nervous system. Studies have shown that he was most likely affected by an extremely rare disease known as Proteus syndrome. It causes the extreme overgrowth of bones, skin and other organs. Proteus syndrome is characterized by asymmetric growth that often affects one side of the body more than the other, just like in Merrick's case. Unfortunately, Merrick's parents would never have known that young Joseph would have had Proteus syndrome at his birth. The disease does not show physical symptoms until the afflicted child reaches 6 months of age. Merrick had brothers, but they all had a short and difficult life. They died of various diseases and infirmities. Merrick's first brother, John, was born on April 21, 1864 and died after only 3 months of smallpox. It was a widespread disease at that time. Merrick's second brother, William, was born in January 1866 and lived until almost 5 years before dying of scarlet fever. Marion was Merrick's only sister. She was born on September 28, 1867 and also had physical problems such as myelitis, convulsions and other deformities. She died in 1891, a year after Merrick. Merrick lost his mother at 11 and his father remarried right away. Merrick quit studying and started making cigars to help with the family income. But he had to quit his job after a few years, because his growths on his right arm disabled him. He then went to work in his father's shop that sold items for tailors, men's clothing and accessories. His assignment was that of a door-to-door salesman, which he found very difficult. His deformities on his legs and hips prevented him from walking well, making it tiring to wander from one house to another. At that point in his life, his deformities on his face had made him terribly disfigured. They also made it hard for him to speak when he tried to sell his father's goods. The people who opened the doors were shocked to see him in front of them. But they couldn't understand his words, and many were terrified by his appearance. Despite his attempts, the money was never enough. Merrick's father often beat him for not selling enough and threw him out of the house at 17. Merrick lived in a time when exhibitions of people with physical anomalies were common. Because of his deformities, he was discovered by Tom Norman, who immediately added him to his famous attractions. With his gray and swollen skin, Merrick was presented as half man and half elephant. Norman claimed that Merrick was treated with dignity and earned well while being part of his bizarre show. Even though Merrick was better off than living on the streets, Norman continued to exploit him by keeping him in the show. But Norman's show no longer attracted the public, and the police closed it soon for reasons of morality and disorder. Unable to find a job, Merrick went to Belgium to try his luck in another show there, which turned out to be a rip-off. Merrick was taken to Belgium by a new promoter and a disinterested audience. Merrick did not have much success in the traveling shows, and his Austrian promoter was a cruel person. After the failure of the Belgian shows, the Austrians stole all his money, beat him up and left him alone. Not knowing what to do, Merrick wanted to return to England. He managed to find a place on a ship and returned to England in 1886. During the trip from Belgium, Merrick became ill with bronchitis. When he arrived at Liverpool Street Station, people attacked him for his appearance. With his confused speech, Merrick was stopped and taken away by the police. Merrick wrote well and enjoyed doing it. After returning to London from Europe, he went to live in the London hospital thanks to the help of Dr. Frederick Treves. Once settled in a safe room, Merrick's passion for writing blossomed. He discovered that writing gave him consolation in a life that had been so sad. He wrote prose and poetry and loved writing letters. His letters often ended with a poem called False Greatness by Isaac Watts, which had a special meaning for Merrick. It is true that my form is something strange, but blaming me is blaming God. I could create myself again. I will not fail to please you. If I could reach from one pole to another or grasp the ocean with a span, I would be measured by the soul. The mind is the standard of man. Even though many years have passed since Merrick's death, the National Archives of the United Kingdom still have some letters written by him. Merrick wrote well and enjoyed doing it. After returning to London from Europe, he went to live in the London hospital thanks to the help of Dr. Frederick Treves. Once settled in a safe room, Merrick's passion for writing blossomed. He discovered that writing gave him consolation in a life that had been so sad. He wrote prose and poetry and loved writing letters. His letters often ended with a poem called False Greatness by Isaac Watts, which had a special meaning for Merrick. It is true that my form is something strange, but blaming me is blaming God. I could create myself again. I will not fail to please you. If I could reach from one pole to another or grasp the ocean with a span, I would be measured by the soul. His letters often ended with a poem called False Greatness by Isaac Watts, which had a special meaning for Merrick. It is true that my form is something strange, but blaming me is blaming God. I could create myself again. I will not fail to please you. If I could reach from one pole to another or grasp the ocean with a span, I would be measured by the soul. Merrick Skeleton was taken to the Queen Mary University of London after they examined it. For a long time, people could see it live. Now, Merrick's bones are in a secret room and you need a special permission to enter. But those who want to see the skeleton can go to the Royal London Hospital, where they made a very accurate copy with 3D technology. This copy can be seen together with other things of Merrick, such as his hat and mask, his photos and a little church that he built when he was at the London Hospital. His letters often ended with a poem called False Greatness by Isaac Watts, which had a special meaning for Merrick. It is true that my form is something strange, but blaming me is blaming God. I could create myself again. I will not fail to please you. If I could reach from one pole to another or grasp the ocean with a span, I would be measured by the soul. To make him look as much as possible like Merrick, Lynch asked for the help of the makeup artist Chris Tucker, who used the prints of Merrick's body to make a very accurate copy. Even after 90 years from his death, Joseph Merrick was able to interest the audience. These were the top 10 interesting facts about the Elephant Man. We hope you enjoyed them and learned something new about this fascinating and heartwarming figure. If you liked the video, leave a like, a comment and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more videos like this one. Thanks for following us and see you next time.